Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Grace, it is lovely to have you here, and welcome to a writing vlog. It has been some time since I filmed one of these and I'm a little bit nervous. Just to give some context, I did talk about this a little bit at the end of my Wales vlog because I felt really inspired when I came back from Wales. I always do. But basically I haven't really been writing since the start of the year. I kind of took a break. I tried at the start of the year to get into a habit of writing regularly, but I just wasn't really mentally in a place where that was healthy. I just felt miserable every time I picked up a pen. So I gave myself a break, and honestly YouTube has kind of been fulfilling that creative space for me. It's been such a great creative outlet. But on our trip to Wales, I definitely felt that itch to get back to writing. It's always a place that I find really inspiring. Nature in general is the biggest source of inspiration for me when it comes to writing. And I've also been struggling a little bit with YouTube being less creatively fulfilling recently. I've definitely fallen into the trap a little bit of making videos that I think people would want to see and would do well rather than things that are creatively fulfilling for me personally. I kind of sat myself down recently and just went through the videos I had planned because a lot of them I just wasn't feeling like filming at all. I didn't have any enthusiasm for. So I've kind of recentered things back to making things that I am actually excited about making again. And one of those things includes writing, trying to get back into writing and filming that process somewhat at least. I don't think I'm gonna film all of it because I already put so much pressure on myself in the writing department. So we've got to balance those two things. But I have a free day today and I thought I would just give myself the perfect environment to write, just give myself a head start. And for me, that means dressing up like a medieval character and going to Sherwood Forest, hanging out in Robin Hood's old stomping grounds. I have no specific plan for what I'm going to write other than just kind of letting myself be inspired by the environment. It's meant to be a lovely day, so I won't go on anymore. Let's just get going. Hello, I hope you can hear me okay. I've just got you leaned against this really cool tree actually. I'll have to get some footage of it. It's very like bulbous. It's like someone's cut it back and then it's grown over. Anyway, I've been wandering around the woods for a little over an hour, I think. I saw a couple of jays as soon as I got here. I didn't manage to catch them because they moved too quickly, but then I've heard many other birds, seen a squirrel, lots of butterflies. It is a very lovely day. It's very sunny. I haven't managed to find a quiet spot that was in the shade where I could sit down and write, but I have been kind of mulling over phrases in my head, I guess, so I kind of been scribbling as I walked a little. I'm kind of focusing on just description at the moment. My love for writing comes partially from stories, but largely from just the process of stringing words together in a way that evokes a feeling or a sensation or a place. We used to get given those creative writing exercises at school where they just give you a picture of a misty path through the woods or a moorland or any kind of setting and you'd describe it, and I used to love those tasks. I was in my element. So yeah, I'm trying to focus on just kind of the writing exercise of fitting words together. It's always felt a little bit like a puzzle to me, finding the right words to fit together. Sorry, you've totally moved. There were people and I got embarrassed. But yeah, I'm trying to focus on writing exercises and description, partly because that is a lot of where my love for writing comes from, but also because stories scare me. The actual imaginative story crafting part of writing has always been the hardest for me. Back when I was still writing nearly every day back at uni, I felt like I came up with a proper good novel idea probably once every 2 years, and a lot of other novel writers I hear about having 3 or 4 ideas in the bank at any given moment, which is wild to me. But yeah, we're starting small with the actual writing process itself because I am rusty. So I think I'm gonna wander back. I've done some kind of circular loop. I got a little bit lost, but there was a bug. I didn't mind too much because I was just kind of wandering, but I'm gonna head back towards the kind of visitor centre entrance where I got off the bus. And if I can find somewhere to sit along the way, then great, but if not, then there is a cafe over there that I can always pop into after I've done my forest bathing. Is that what they call it? And hopefully I will feel inspired enough to properly sit down and just do some practice writing, I guess. I have found the most beautiful spot. It's crazy. I'm in this kind of, I don't think it would be called a clearing because it's a bit too big and there are still trees, they've kind of thinned out a little bit, so there's much more room to just sit. But I've found this crescent of silver birches, so they've made a little canopy to keep me in the shade and the light is sifting through them so beautifully. But as I was sitting here, I noticed that they kind of tell a story. I'll have to get some footage of it. There are 12 trees in this little half circle and they're all growing in pairs. The first pair are quite far apart, but then as you go around the half circle they get closer and closer together until they're entwined. It feels like they're telling some kind of story. It's so pretty, and it also fits perfectly into this kind of setting that I have for a book. It is very woodland based and it's also a love story, so I just had to write a little description of it. I think I can probably write a better one, but now that I've seen it I feel like if that book ever does become a thing, then I have to feature this little place. I'm just so glad I found this beautiful spot. Hello, Mr. Ladybird. Sorry for the angle, there is not much to lean anything upon out here. I just wrote a description of this little area and kind of a version of it within my setting for my maybe book that I'm actually really pleased with. I've kind of set it at a point where our 2 main characters are still quite unsure of each other, not at all certain that they are safe with the other person, and our main character finds the other character sitting in this half circle of trees, but the protagonist is really fixated on how kind of brutal the way that silver birches grow is, the way that their bark seems to almost burst out of the shell, the veneer on top. And then when our love interest looks up and notices that the main character is there, there's this moment of them meeting each other's gaze and not knowing what to do. And I've written, there was a breath in which we both froze as 2 foxes might in the moonlight, before one yielded the ground and went on their way. Perhaps I should have yielded and left that place, but then her smile burst free, like the bark from the birches, and I came to meet her in her crescent moon. And I just really like the way that's wrapped up and threaded all of those thoughts together a little bit. That's my favourite thing, I think, about writing, is when things kind of feel like they're falling into place. And it's funny because when I try to write these days, really it's my self-esteem getting in the way. I have this big underlying thought that I used to be a writer, and that is a talent or a skill that I have entirely lost, which is very silly, I know. I'm out of practice, that's what it is. I haven't really practiced my craft in a few years, properly at least. And when you don't practice anything for that long, you get worse at it and you have to build that back up again. But it doesn't mean that it's entirely gone or you're incapable of ever learning that thing again. But really, anytime I sit down to write, it feels like I'm wading through this really thick fog or goop or something to just persuade myself that I am still capable of doing this thing. So that was a nice little glimpse into the fact that I can write things that I like, even if they're really tiny. Like, it was a very short few paragraphs, but I feel a little bit more hopeful about it. I just catastrophize things a lot. I make it out to be much bigger than it is. I'm also really thinking about what I want to do with this book idea that I've had since I think 2020 or start of 2021 maybe, and it is what I keep going back to. I love the vibes of it and the general themes. I don't know if I feel like I am good enough to write this thing, I guess. I think it gets a little bit political and I'm scared of that. I feel like I don't know enough, but that is usually what happens at the start of a story, you just research. But at the same time, I don't know if I'm using this idea as a crutch because I struggle to come up with new ideas. I don't know if it would be better for me to have a bit of a fresh slate. But in the meantime, I do think I should probably just continue doing some writing practices, trying to get back into that habit of writing regularly, because up until recent years, I had never really gone more than a few days without writing while I was growing up. From the age of, I'd say 11 to about 20, I was writing nearly every day. So I was just in the habit of it, and that makes you better at something. Of course, I wrote bad things in that time, but overall the quality of what I was writing was improving all of that time. So I just need to build that habit back up before I jump into a giant project. But anyway, my camera battery is dying, but I'm gonna get a little bit more writing done hopefully, and then I will have to update you when I get back home with how the rest of the afternoon went, I think. Hello, Editing Grace here to apologise for how out of focus this whole clip is. I did not notice until far too late, rookie error on my part. Honestly, I thought about throwing out this entire video because it all feels a little bit messier than I would like, but then I thought what could be more appropriate than my first video trying to get back into writing again being a little bit messy. So if you've stuck around this far, thank you very much. Back to it. Hello, I am back home. That was a very hot bus ride home. I ended up writing a little bit more and I kind of switched tactics and just started kind of brain dumping how I'm feeling onto the page about writing mostly, and mostly just how I really need to have a little bit more faith in myself and give myself the chance to mess up and not write perfectly immediately every time, because of course I'm not going to do that. I had a really lovely time out in Sherwood Forest. It was really pretty and I'm so glad I found that little glade or whatever you would call it. I was getting a little bit stressed that I couldn't find somewhere to sit. It would have been fine, but I guess my plans had been derailed and it was stressing me out, but it was just the perfect place to stumble upon. I do think that I would have an easier time writing if I lived closer to nature, and Chris and I are hoping to move. It is very slowly in the works now that he's got a new job that he's going to start. It will change things a bit, but of course we have to wait for that to kick in. It's a whole thing. We'll get there. But in the meantime, I don't want to just use that as an excuse not to write. I don't want to just say, oh, I'll start writing when we move somewhere where I can go on a walk every day. But I do feel like I kind of nudged a door ajar a little bit today. I mean, I really didn't write that much in the end. I only wrote kind of a few pages in here, but my goal wasn't really word count or anything. It was more just to kind of break through that first barrier, and also to spend a day with my thoughts. Something I've really realized in the last few months is that I am really terrible at being alone with my head. I used to be a huge daydreamer as a kid and a teenager, and I used to spend a lot of time just kind of thinking and then writing because of that. And that is a lot of what being a writer is. You might not see someone physically writing at all times, but they're stewing and mulling over things. A lot of it happens up here. And because of some kind of periods of bad mental health for me, I guess, and just the way that the modern world is, I've really trained my brain over the last few years to not be able to cope without some kind of media all the time. I'm always listening to music or an audiobook, or I've got a YouTube video on in the background, and there's nothing wrong with those things in moderation. Obviously they can be inspiring. Reading other people's books is such a good source of inspiration and such a learning tool for a writer, and similarly I find music so inspiring. The current book idea that I'm slowly noodling on is entirely inspired by a Taylor Swift song. But if I then don't give myself the time to linger on those thoughts and just allow them to kind of fester up there and have that space to grow without being constantly bombarded with media, then I'm not going to be able to expand upon that inspiration. Especially living in a city as well, if I ever go out on a walk, I always have my headphones on. I don't feel that comfortable wandering around without them. I feel like I'm gonna get accosted. So it was really nice to feel safe just wandering around the wood for several hours today, and I did start to feel that urge to write things down, so clearly it does work. Yeah, at my peak I will definitely be a walk a day kind of girl, but in the meantime I want to give myself time every day where I'm not just listening to things and watching things, where I'm sitting alone with my thoughts. Maybe find some other places that I feel safe doing that. And I want to try and build a habit of writing again, because everything takes practice, so if I'm not practicing, I'm not going to get better again. I really enjoyed what I wrote today, which is the first time that's happened in a while. Usually when I've been writing in the last few months, it has been a slog of me feeling throughout like everything I'm putting down is terrible and pointless, and I'm a really bad writer, so it was lovely to actually feel like the cogs were turning and things were falling into place. And obviously that's not going to happen every time. Even if you're an incredible writer who is more practiced than I am, then there are going to be days when it's just not working. But I would love to build back up to having a habit where I am okay with that and I see the highs and lows for what they are, rather than just assuming if I'm having a bad day that I am a bad writer. So thank you for coming with me on what was basically a glorified walk. This may be kind of a baby step, especially from the outside, but it has been a really nice day and it has given me a little bit more hope where my writing is concerned. I am definitely feeling inspired with this idea that I've been working on. I still don't know if I want to continue with that idea or if I want to start something new. For context, whatever I work on will end up being fantasy realistically. The idea I have currently is a fantasy with a romance subplot. It has a lot of ecological themes. It's a little bit Arthurian inspired, at least in vibe and setting mostly. It's very inspired by the natural history of the UK, temperate rainforests. That's where I want to be at all times, so that is what I write about. But yeah, whether I go with that idea or not, it's gonna have some kind of fantastical element to it because that is what is in my heart. But like I said, for now, I want to just build back up that habit of trying to write regularly and practice my craft descriptions. I think I'm just gonna go back to that kind of kids activity of finding a cool picture of a natural environment and describing it. Or I guess not all natural, but you know, I have a preference. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'll let you go. Thank you again for watching this video and for coming on my writing journey with me. It's been very stop-start, I know. Probably it will continue to be, but I am really hopeful that I will be able to make some more writing themed videos in the near future. Watch this space. But I hope you're having the loveliest day and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye-bye.